have anything to do with the success of that song, you did it. You did it. There's a part of us that needs to rise above the stuff of life. Is that the truth? Those of you who are using tissues and feeling some emotion around this song? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. Know who you are. And sometimes when life is icky, it's really hard to remember that we have the capacity to actually express our divinity and remember the truth of who we are within this human condition when we feel lost and all the other things that Andrew's lyric said. And rise above it all, and remember the truth. See, we're here. That's why this mission on the wall, embracing our humanity and expressing our divinity, is so incredibly important to us, because we recognize that we're all here right now in our humanity, aren't we? I am, and I know all of you are too. And that's part of it, yeah? Stuff. And that's the life, what Eckhart Tolle would call the life situation, the human condition. And underneath that and above it and all around it and all through it is my divinity, is who I really am. It's that energy of what Eric Butterworth says, that expression of God as me in this. But it's not always easy to remember. I picked this image here of Carl Sagan talks about us being stardust. Yes? This star stuff that we all are. You see, it's timeless. Before time, after time, within time. This is what we really are. There's never a time that we weren't that. Never. Because it's beyond time. It's outside of time. But right now, today, you and I are expressing in these forms as the human beings that we are today. So there's really, if you think about it, and I love what one of our authors says, was there ever a time when you weren't you? Was there ever a time that you can remember when you weren't yourself, weren't who you are? Now, this is what I want to tell you is I can't tell you who you are. You know who you are. I can give you some pointers. I can read to you from Eric Butterworth's book. I can do lots of research to come up with some ideas about who we are. But the truth of the matter is, you know in yourself who you are when you remember. When you forget, then stuff starts showing up difficult, starts showing up unskillfully. And who we are changes in our human form, changes with every single breath, with every moment. I like what David, what's his name? David Hawkins says. The universe holds its breath every time we make a choice, every time we have a thought, every time we make a decision, every time we take an action. We're that important in the world because every single moment, who we are is dependent on our awareness in that moment. Do you realize that? We can know at the depth of our being who we are, that we're this star stuff, that we are this incredible spark of the divine. But in our humanness, you see, in our human walk in the world, we are always invited to ask the question, who am I being right now? Who am I being right now? Oh, who am I being right now? What is my creative mission, as Brian Swim would say? We're invited to live an examined life, because if we're not living an examined life and not monitoring ourselves on a regular basis, who we are in the moment in our humanity is going to be very different. Very different, you see. And so, what I know about my own journey is there are really no answers, because there are unlimited possible answers to who I'm going to be in any given moment, how I'm going to show up, how I'm going to be. Beyond the labels, beyond the identification with gender, with age, with role, with ideas, with beliefs, with whatever, who I'm going to actually show up as in that moment is going to change. Boy, I'll tell you what, it's been my experience, there's a pretty broad range of possibilities. How about you? Yeah. So, of course, it's unique to each of us, but I get to monitor myself and say, oh, there she is. There I am, little scared me. Oh, there I am, compassionate me. Oh, there I am, kind me. There I am, angry me. There I am, whatever. See, we get to constantly, that's how we know who we are. That's how we know who we are as humans, is to monitor ourselves, to ask ourselves that question. Because you know what? Who I'm being right now is a process. Who I am right now is a relatively calm, speaking people machine. Standing here with a role, and whatever you're thinking about, or however you're perceiving yourself in this moment, whatever labels you're giving yourself, that's who you're being right now. Maybe you're being a questioning one. Maybe you're being a tired, yawning one. Maybe you're being, an angry one, or an impatient one, or a tired one, whatever, you see. Because each moment we're in a divine dance with all that is. Who we are is making meaning of our life experience. Now this is the deal. The more aware we are, the more clear we are, the more in touch with the idea of our divinity, the more we're clear about the truth of our beingness at the core of our true essence, that God stuff, the clearer we are, the less dependent we're going to get on all the external stuff. The less we're going to rely on stuff to identify who we are, on our relationships to identify who we are, on our status to identify who we are, on our accomplishments or our money or our recognition or all that stuff. The more we know who we are at the core of our divinity, the less attached we're going to be and the less dependent we're going to be on all that other stuff to define ourselves. To say, oh yeah, that's who I am, I'm my money. Oh yeah, that's who I am, I'm my education. Oh yeah, that's who I am, I'm my beautiful body. Oh yes, that's who I am, the unlovable one. That's who I am, the unworthy one. That's who I am, the one who's not smart enough. That's who I am, the one without enough money. See, we label ourselves in so many ways. We get to decide what that looks like for us. And part of our problem is a lot of us are tapped into wanting to identify ourselves by who other people think we should be, or tell us we are, or what the media tells us. We don't have to be any of that stuff. We get to be our unique self, our own dancer. And sometimes, and this has been the case in my life, sometimes there are turning points that are reminders of who we really are. This can happen with our health. This can happen with the loss of loved ones. This can happen when we're in a transition between our work and whatever comes next. This can happen when relationships dissolve. This can happen in so many ways. There are game changers. And the time we really ask ourselves, have you ever told yourself, I'm really not sure who I am anymore? Have you ever said that to yourself? I'm not really sure who I am anymore. Well, usually those times when we are asking ourselves or saying that to ourselves, they're the game changer times in our lives where we've experienced these big things, these big issues, these health challenges, these betrayals, whatever they are, when our role or circumstances, the life circumstances, change, right? When it ends. Usually this is when we say, I don't know who I am anymore. I'm not quite sure what's going on anymore. And so when we try to figure out who we are, if we begin with who we're not, that's a good thing to do. Begin with where we're not. And in a spiritual setting, I'll tell you one thing I know for darn sure about myself, and I know it about all of you, and even if you don't know it about yourself, not one of us is a miserable sinner. I am not a miserable sinner. You are not a miserable sinner. You are a divine creation. You are pure, radiant, and untainted from the inside out, and that can never change. So we have to know who we are. But when we are asking ourselves, we've got to look at what we think about ourselves and say, no, I'm not that. I am lovable. I am worthy. I am smart. I am older but lovely. I am, you know. I am a little pudgy, but you know what? That's okay. We got to remember what we're not. And most of it's around these untidy things like this miserable sinner idea in one way or another. So who I am right now, if I can tap into the idea of being free from all those labels that get in the way, it changes the way my life experience is. And you know what? That helps me meet my own expectations. Because if I'm always trying to live up to somebody else's idea of what I am, it's going to be a real problem. Because I'm not always going to meet my own expectations, much less someone else's. Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth? Sometimes I disappoint myself. And I love the work of Sharon Salzberg. She says we got to relearn our loveliness. We got to remind ourselves who we are. We got to remind ourselves that we're beautiful, divine creatures expressing in the world, doing the activity, being the activity of God in human form. We got to remind ourselves, relearn our loveliness. I love that concept. I'm lovely. I'm lovely, and I know it. And so are you. The natural radiance that comes from within, that is not dependent on any exterior stuff, helps me remember my place in the cosmos, as Brian Swim would say. Yep, I'm going to have some unskillful experiences in life. I'm going to get angry. I'm going to slam doors. I'm going to get mad. I'm going to get disappointed. I'm going to have some unskillful reactions in life. And I'm going to cause pain along the way for myself and others. That's just the human condition. But when I actually know the truth of my divinity, I can bless all of it and move on. I don't have to stay stuck on any of that stuff. So that I can find and give expression to who I really am in the process of every day. What Eckhart Tolle would say, the life beneath the life. This is our life situation. This is the stuff that shows up. These are the conditions of humanity that we're all embracing in one way or another on a regular basis. And then beneath that, above it, around it, through it, there is this incredible energy of the divine that we are within all of that. That's the God's eye view of our life, you see. We've got this different perspective. I think the better angel concept, you see. I am the creative activity of God expressing in the universe. I am God's living enterprise. And so as I close my part of the talk today, this is my invitation to you. I am going to remind you of what I read in the opening paragraph or the opening period, because I think it's really important. You can know who you are when you really, really take this in. You are a unique and wonderful individual. You are important. You are not just a statistic, but a vital part of the universe. Truly, you live in its center. You are its center. You are God's living enterprise. God has something wonderful to say through you, which can only be said as you. The cosmos can never be quite complete without you. Remember who you are.